Namaste. Hi, welcome to the Shaman The Mermaid. This is your astrology forecast for October 16th all the way through October 31st. And we're kicking off with a Super Libra New Moon.
That sounds good.
We will talk about that in a moment. We want to talk about our theme and the general energy of this time of year.
Well, as Michael said, this will take us up until October 31st, which most of us are familiar with that as Halloween here. And it's Samhain, which is the midpoint between autumn and winter solstice. So the autumn equinox, winter solstice, and the midpoint is this coming 31st of October, Samhain. And it's notoriously for us to think of as when the veil lifts between the two worlds. And this is also the same point where we have Dia de los Muertos, we have All Souls, All Saints Day right there on the 31st, the 1st, and the 2nd. And this is where we can feel the ancestors and the people who have walked before us, and not only our blood ancestors, but our spirit ancestors from different lineages, different lines of hereditary energies. For example, I was reading something from Thich Nhat Hanh, and he was talking about our ancestors. And he mentions that we have blood ancestors and we have spirit ancestors. And he said, your spirit ancestor might be Buddha, or it might be Jesus, or anybody, Quan or Mother Mary. You pick who you are aligning to. That's not necessarily in your direct family lineage. And then you are receiving the transmissions and the downloads from these ancestors. And that's your spirit ancestors. And then of course you have your blood ancestors, which are grandfathers and grandmothers and aunts and uncles and lineages beyond that immediate outward family line, and to great grandparents and great greats and great greats and on down the road. And it's an important time to remember them. And we'll go into and unpack that a little bit more as we go through the aspects for the next 2 weeks. But it's a time, as I said, that the veil is lifted and thin between the two worlds, and it's feeling like there's no boundaries to things. And so we've simplified what we think we should say for this time for our theme, and say, access the ancestors. Just that simple, period. Let it happen. Let the veil lift and let yourself connect, because there's a lot of guidance, a lot of wisdom, a lot of know-how, a lot of loving support, a lot of being held and nurtured and cared for, and a lot of healing can come from them. So this is a time for us to embrace that access, and so access the ancestors. That's the theme for this time. Starting on the new moon in Libra, there's a big kickoff, and Michael will explain that to us.
Our new moon in Libra means the sun and the moon are both in Libra, though they are very close to approaching Scorpio. Scorpio is an important part of this report, I'll mention now, because Mercury is retrograding through Scorpio from a few days ago, October 13th, all the way through November 3rd. So that will be flavoring this time, and during this report the sun will move into Scorpio, the moon will pass through Scorpio. But right now the sun and the moon are in Libra, and they are in this dynamic T-square basically. And on one side of the T-square, here's my diagram, is Mars and Lilith and Eris. Yes. Over here is the sun and the moon. And up here are the three big peeps, Pluto, Saturn, and Jupiter. And they're in this cross, and that means their energies are coming into a dynamic tension. And the new moon is a super new moon, so it means the moon is physically much closer to the Earth, and it also means that the moon's influence is much more intense. And when it's a new moon, it's pulling on our inner world, our inner water. It's pulling on the oceans more when it's a super new moon. It's pulling on the Earth's tectonic plates. It's pulling on the atmosphere more. And it's also pulling on your physical water, your body, your internal emotions. And so this could be an emotional moon.
And the little caveat to that is it's in Libra, which brings about a lot of balanced energy, especially in relationship to self or other. And so in that kind of craziness of these T-squares, it's at least in Libra that can offer us that balanced energy.
Though not to go against that, the shadow side of Libra is to try and control everything and
true.
to be codependent. So you may be like,
yeah. I know, I'm always looking to what the positive is, and there is a shadow to all of these sides, and we have to keep that in balance, especially at this time, because tendency right now is to go into mental thought processes over and over and over again. Mercury retrograde, though, as Michael pointed out, is saying slow your thinking down. In fact, quit thinking. Don't think as much as you can. Of course, I can say that and you'll still think, but maybe if I emphasize the importance of let the mind just take a little rest. Retrograde is for all the RE words: resting, relaxing, rejuvenating, rekindling. And Mercury is so much of our thinking and our opinions and our curiosity and wanting to know stuff. And it's kind of auspicious, I'll say, that Mercury went retrograde just before election time, when our anxieties are really up. That's very mercurial energy, anxiousness, nervous system. And it's saying slow it down, rest and relax that. And so try not to go into constant analytical, critical thinking, and let yourself be in a place of just being, no doing, not thinking, relaxing into it. And so how does that tie into the new moon in Libra? Well, as he pointed out, those three big heavy hitters that are at the top of that T-square, Pluto, Saturn, and Jupiter, they are holding this power that is saying, really get your shizzle together, people. Saturn is karma and justice, and Jupiter is big teachings and expansion of consciousness, and Pluto is your soul self. And so it's saying, get your shizzle together, is to me what that is in a nutshell. And then the moon is squaring that, and the moon is our inner self, our inner feelings, and it's saying, no, I don't want to. And it's coupled right up with Lilith, or opposite of Lilith, sorry. A moon is directly opposite of Lilith, but that tension or tug of war between Lilith and the moon, who are really sister energies of each other. The Lilith energy holds the moon in that spin. It's what's holding it going around. So they're really kind of in opposition to each other, metaphorically anyway, holding each other in centrifugal force. And here they are directly opposite of the wheel of each other at the same time that the moon is squaring those big dogs and squaring Mars. The Mars is squaring those big dogs too. So there's a whole lot of, I don't know what to do, I don't want to be, I want to just cry and go inward and sit down. So an emotional moon, it could very well be. But hold to that balance energy. Don't go codependent and don't go control freak. The other side of Libra energy, as Michael pointed out.
Access the ancestors. Let them think for you.
Yeah, the theme, access the ancestors. The veil's lifted, let them come through. Call them in, do ceremony, invite them to surround you. And I know, like, sometimes when you hear that, access the ancestors, that might be a little creepy sounding, or calling in their spirit bodies might feel a little unwelcoming, especially if they, while embodied, they were troublesome. Like maybe grandpa had a drinking problem or was a little abusive or controlling himself, whatever. Grandma, same thing. And so to think about calling them in for their wisdom doesn't sound like what we want to do for our best good. And I would say my offering to you on that is when the spirit body passes and passes through Bardo to the other side, they are liberated from that negative energy, and their whole desire is to help heal you, to get you where you need to go. Because of that, think of that Native American saying that says, when you heal yourself, you heal the 7 generations behind you, and you heal the 7 generations that come after you. So your ancestors, if they weren't in the healthiest of ways while they were embodied, they have reached a place where they can access that wisdom world, the interbeing, as Thich Nhat Hanh says, between all things, and they can bring you the wisdom that they didn't necessarily access in their living body. They now have the wisdom, they have the hindsight, they have the access to that spirit realm, and can help you access it too. So listen to them, call them in there for your highest way. And this is the time for that. The veil is lifted, as I said. So we're only on day 1, October 16. We're going to cruise along and knock out some of these other aspects. 2 days later, Sunday, October 18th, quite a bit of stuff happening there, including a couple squares. You want to talk about that?
This is Sun square Saturn, Mars square Jupiter, and Venus opposite Neptune. So what to say about all this in a little nutshell? Well, Sun and Mars are opposite of each other in the sky, and in between them are all the big dogs, Saturn, Pluto, and Jupiter. And so they're going to be constantly hitting both of these from both sides of the arc. So everything the Sun's going to do, the Mars is doing as well. And the Sun is your personal self, your heart energy, your desires. Mars also has a lot of relationship to that energy. It's your willpower, your desires, your initiative to go forth. And so a lot of our feeling empowerment in a physical body and feeling like a personality is being challenged by, well, Saturn is karma, rules, things that you need to do, how you respond to authority and that type of energy. And Jupiter is like what you have faith in or what you want to go for. But Jupiter, we usually put it in a positive light, but Jupiter is no slight. Jupiter has to do with trust and faith, and so it will test your trust and faith. And squaring Mars is testing how much you are in the physical world or in the spirit world. How much you go for just what I want now and personal satisfaction versus can you stick to your faith and trust in things you can't see or touch and keep moving forward. Yeah. And I think Sun square Saturn and Mars square Jupiter are similar, like testing your ability to keep determined, testing your faith, testing your trust, testing your vision, and testing how much you'll stay in alignment with what your path is. And Venus opposite Neptune, sandwiched in between there, is the self-worth and personal self and self-love, opposite of feeling like you're swirling in this big energy of the universe and not quite tethered in. It can also feel very alone and separated, and I think a lot of people are hitting that edge now of separation and aloneness. And this is bringing that tension out, or can. Now there can be positive parts to an opposition. Venus opposite Neptune can pull the threads that you can see some new revelations, I think, if you step into that energy.
Yeah, we've had several emails, phone calls, text messages from friends and people close to our heart that are reaching out, asking for a little help right now because they're in a dark place. They're little lost souls. They're feeling, bordering on suicidal thoughts and tendencies because this is such a nebulous and difficult time to walk through, especially if you are alone in this world or feeling lonely. You're never alone. Call in those ancestors and those spirit guides and let them circle around you. You're connected in the interbeing field and in this web of life, and Indra's web, as we say in Vedic terms. But that doesn't always show up in our hearts, and sometimes we feel really lonely. And I feel like these particular energies that we just been talking about, from clear on the new moon with the moon squaring Pluto, Saturn, Jupiter, and the moon opposite Lilith. Sun squares Saturn, and Mars squaring Jupiter, Venus opposite Neptune. Those are all setting up for what could be the shadow side, as Michael likes to put it, this really lonely, desperate, disconnected, disassociated sense of being. And throw in the fact that we're in Vata season, if you know your doshas, on top of that, where everything is blowing in the wind, the leaves are decaying and dying, everything's coming down in a swirl, fires are burning. This is all part of that Vata, very drying out and untethered feeling. But let's go to the positive sides of all this, that I think Venus opposite Neptune is a chance. Neptune is that spiritual energy. It's the infinite beyond, limitless potential. And Venus is the self-love and your values. I think this is an incredible time to like set into your own integral path with that spiritual energy wide open. You're sitting across the table from Great Spirit, Venus opposite Neptune, and just look in the eyes of that infinite beyond. It's kind of like when Krishna revealed who he was to Arjuna and opened his mouth, and Arjuna could see the whole entire universe and creation inside of Krishna, you know, the Godhead of that story. And so it's a chance to have those revelations and epiphanies and realize what it is that we are as beings. And to quote C.S. Lewis, he says, you don't have a soul, you are a soul. You have a body. And I think it's an important time to remember that we're spirit beings. And so what better time than when the veil is thin, call in the ancestors, they'll help you remember too. You know, that's what Day of the Dead is all about, is to set that altar and honor them as a way to bring them through and let their guidance come in. So, big stuff. And then we go on. We have Monday, October 19th, and this is Mercury opposite Uranus and Venus trining Jupiter. What do you have to say on that one?
I think this is a little harmonic positive boost, particularly from Monday, October 19th through the 21st. 21st, Venus will then trine Pluto. So she's trining Jupiter and Pluto over 3 days. And these are all harmonious aspects. Venus is, I like to go with the self-love piece, but even deeper than that, because sometimes we go, what does self-love really mean? We always use the cliche thing. Does that mean get a pedicure and go sit in a hot tub? Well, sure, but is that full self-love? Self-love has a lot to do with self-recognition, looking at what you're worth and honoring your worth, and it's also acknowledging the shadow side of you. Not to go into the creepy side, but it's like, I have fears, I have insecurities, I'm not going to hide them. I'm going to bring them out and care for them, and that is part of self-love. It's not just being the, you know, I'm great, I'm doing really good.
Fine.
But I think Venus, that part we talked about where Jupiter tests your faith, Venus trine Jupiter is like a support and boost, like you are being, for lack of a better word, rewarded or boosted in your ability to say, okay, I believe this is what I'm going forward with, it feels right in my bones, and it makes me feel good. And Venus trine Pluto on October 21st is getting that soul hit, like the soul is saying, yes, this is right, and then the self says, yes, this feels good, and it's empowering. Now, the Mercury opposite Uranus is a wild card, because both of those energies are wild cards anyway. They represent the Hyoka, mercurial, coyote energy, and they're electric, and then oppositions are two energies being held in a balance. Mercury, as Katrina said, is about thinking and connecting in, and Uranus, there's lots of names we give to Uncle Uranus, but one is the Great Awakener. Uranus's job is to awaken us to our full potential. And Uranus, if we put it in a personal sense, doesn't care whether you wake up by revelation or trauma. Both will shock you into a sense of, okay, get your shit together. Let's go for revelation. So Mercury opposite Uranus is like two circuits connecting, and
Yeah.
An opportunity to go and be revealed and have lots of new thought come through, though it can also be the tinderbox spark and problem.
Right. I like to think of that particular day with Venus trine Jupiter and Mercury opposite Uranus as a great day to meditate, because I'm really trying to promote that Mercury retrograde concept of slow down your thinking, just sit with yourself, listen to your high self, listen to your spirit guides, listen to your own soul self speak. And Mercury opposite Uranus is a chance to kind of quiet the mind, Mercury, and let yourself upload to that more revolutionary thinking. You know, let yourself transcend the mind and go into another dimension of thought, if you will. And to me, that meditation channel can help elevate that. And then Venus trine Jupiter is allowing your values to just expand, so you can, and Jupiter is also very much of a spirit energy too. Big consciousness, big faith, big trust, big belief, and allowing your own self to get, as Michael said, that booster shot of faith on that day too. So meditate on faith on October 19th. That would be a perfect thing to do.
I like to say vision quest to that one.
Yeah, vision quest with that all the way through, and all the way through the October 21st, because Venus, like you said, trines Pluto on that day. So for 3 days, a little meditation would be perfect. And then we move into Scorpio on the 22nd. Sun moves into Scorpio, and that is really that underworld energy. That's where we start to feel like the ghosts and the goblins, those kind of spirit energies come in, or so we think, or so the mind tells us that's what it is. There's that would be kind of the shadow side to Scorpio energy, and I like to think of Scorpio a lot like Kali in the Hindu deities. You know, she's like, and she's actually fierce compassion, and it's that tenacity that she has to burn down the house that helps to transform things. But that can be so scary, and so I think we kind of lump it into dark energy then. And sometimes we have to go into the dark. Like Michael said, self-love is also acknowledging our shadow energy and what needs work, and acknowledging it and feeling it and saying, I have some fears, and I have some anxieties, and I have some shames and guilt, and they're all part of my package. And that is allowing that Scorpio energy to transform it. And so when the sun moves into Scorpio, let yourself just start to go into that deeper work with the accessing the ancestors piece. You know, there's a saying that says, walk like you have 3,000 ancestors behind you, because you do.
Machangi.
And let them support you in this time where things are uncertain. So walk with your 3,000 ancestors. And then October 23rd, we have a half moon. So we'll be midway through before we get to that full moon. And that's in Aquarius. And then we move on to Saturday, October 24th. And there's another trine with Venus, which is really nice. And she's already hit Pluto and Jupiter. And you know the big three, so you can guess that if she's moving pretty quickly and just hit those two, the third one is going to be trining Saturn. And as we said, that's laws and justice and karma, and there's a harmony there with that, that your values and your self-love and your worth is going to have a booster shot or a complement or a harmonizing with your karmas and your own sense of law and order and justice. I think that's a good one. That's October 24th. Then we have Sun and Mercury together in the sign of Scorpio. You want to speak to that one?
Mercury and the Sun together. Mercury never leaves, at least from our perspective, the Sun for very far. It never goes farther than a sign away. And so from our perspective in the sky, Mercury looks like it's just tick-tocking side to side of the Sun. The rest of the planets look like they're going all the way around the arc. That's because Mercury is an inner planet. And so the Sun and Mercury are very related. That's more to my point. what I'm getting at is the energy of thinking and being in our society is very connected. The sun is our personality, and Mercury is what we think, how we learn, how we integrate. And so they're very closely related. And Mercury and the sun coming together is that merging point where like the mind and the heart has an opportunity to merge together in the sign of Scorpio. And Mercury retrograding in Scorpio is coming back to meet the sun. And to me, that's the mind coming back to meet the heart. It's like quiet down the mind. It doesn't say shut up and don't think, but it's like tune into your mind extends beyond just the cranium. From our yogic shamanic perspective, your mind is the trees and the wind, and your mind is the water and your toes on the sand, and your mind is the ancestors and your DNA, and your mind is also the ancestors and the earth and the spirit lineage. And you can tune into that if you quiet down into the heart. All of that is accessible. And the retrograde piece is relax, rejuvenate, release, be quiet, go in. So I think this is a reiteration of Katrina's like meditate, do ceremony, tune in, listen to the ancestors. That's what I got.
Let the mind conjunct with the heart. I love that. Mercury Sun, that was a really nice way to tie that together. So that's October 25th on Sunday. And then we have Mercury, Venus moving into Libra on October 27th. And I like that piece of both those two in Libra. Mercury, as he said prior to that, was in Scorpio retrograding. So it went Scorpio, it's going back into Libra, and it's going to take a dip there, and then it will eventually go back again into Scorpio. But I like that it's dipping back into Libra. The mind stuff, the thinking stuff can take a dip into getting a little bit of balance, not the codependent mind, not the controlling mind, but going in for balance in our relationships. That's how Mercury and Libra can look if we use it in right way. And Venus also moving into Libra, and that is a place that she feels very comfortable in. That's a home sign for her. Taurus being her other. So she cruises right on into home base for her, and that is love comes home to relationships and balance in relationships. And again, it's not only with other, it could be with self. And so looking forward to that day, October 27th, when Mercury and Venus move into Libra. And then that takes us up to Samhain, or Hallows Eve, Halloween, where it's a Taurus full moon. I'm going to talk to that one.
Get your altars ready. You know, if you're wanting to honor this Samhain, Day of the Dead, honoring the ancestors, like start now with this new moon kicking off the cycle on the 16th. Start building your altar. Put out candles. Put out pictures of those that you connect with. It could be Jesus or Buddha or Mother Mary or your grandfather or a dog. Anybody in the spirit world. There's no limits on it. And you know, start to find ways to cultivate that energy every day. Light a candle every day. Put a new offering on the altar every day. Burn incense every day. Sit and pray or meditate every day there. Like, this is a really good time while Mercury is retrograde, while we're heading into the portal of Samhain, to work with this energy for the next 2 weeks or 2.5 weeks. And so prepare for that and honor it. And really, it's a rejoicing time of year. Not always like the rejoice, like happy, but it's like celebrate, rejoice that we're in the cycle of life and that we're still connected to the spirit world and we can still work with the ancestors. That's rejoiceful.
There's still a way to access their energy. And this is the time for that. And something you said made me think when you said, you know, or a picture of your dog. And it reminded me that when we say the ancestors, and I talked about the blood ancestors and the spirit ancestors, that spirit ancestor can open into the elementals as well. Like water might be your spirit ancestor, or earth energy, or fire energy, or air energy, or the spirits of the deities like Saraswati, or the plant people, or it doesn't, you know, the crystals. We work a lot with crystals. It doesn't have to be persona per se. It can be animal totems and the elementals, as I said. It can be the deities of any tradition. And if there is an element to it that feels like it's from creation, from source, spirit, then it counts as an ancestor in the spirit ancestral realm. So call it in. They're coming through too, as well as our blood ancestors, and let them circle around and invite them to give you that guidance and prayer and direction and healing energy. And remember, when you heal yourself, you heal those 7 generations behind you and those 7 generations going forward.
I like that. Well said.
Thanks. I'll give you a kiss. I want to end on a quote from Thich Nhat Hanh that is transitioning as we speak, and maybe even by the time this is put to your inbox, he may have already crossed over the rainbow bridge to the other side. But he is 94 years old. I'm sure most of you know who he is. He's a Vietnamese Buddhist monk who's a prolific writer and poet and wisdom guru. And one of the things he had to say that we found in an article he was writing about ancestors, and it touched us, and we wanted to share it with you. It's a relatively well-known quote, but a little longer. I'll read it to you. If you look deeply into the palm of your hand, you will see your parents and all generations of your ancestors. All of them are alive in this moment. Each is present in your body. You are the continuum of each of these people. And that's from the Venerable Thich Nhat Hanh. Blessings to him as he crosses over. And blessings to you at this time. Hang in there, everybody. State of the light.
Access the ancestors.
Yes. Blessings.
Namaste.
Namaste.